As a wise woman once said, so long, London. Actually, two wise women said that. One of them was Taylor Swift and the other one was me. The wise bit is debatable. Hello, everyone. I have some personal news to share with you today that has been taking over my life for genuinely about the last 6 months. Actually, longer than that. I'm moving. Charlie and I and the cat obviously are moving to Norwich. There are so many moving vlogs coming your way, but I wanted to film this video to post first to kind of talk it all through, explain the what, whens, wheres. I'm probably going to overshare a bit, but I'm going to bring you all up to speed. I wanted to move to London secretly for my whole life. I was super into theatre as a kid. My plan A was to go to drama school in London, then move here and be on the West End. But I was a very deeply anxious child, so I never even really let myself think about it, let alone admit it out loud. As I got a bit older, the drama school thing became less of the focus. For a while, I thought I maybe wanted to be a lawyer or a writer. A dentist was on the cards at one point. Really, it was anyone's guess what I would end up doing. So when the time came to start applying for universities, I applied for like a lot of, not like central London unis, but unis in the vicinity. Surrey, Brunel, several like that. I can't really remember the ins and outs, to be honest. It was so long ago now, but I'd had my uni offer accepted and I did my A-level exams, and basically in the summer between when I took the exams and when I got the results, I convinced myself that I had done so badly in the exams and that there was no way that I would get into uni. And I started forming a plan B. I'm a planner, right? I look at things far in advance. I go, right, okay, if I do, it's like playing chess. If I do this, then this, and then this, and then we'll be here. Like, I've always been like that. So to me, I was going, right, if I haven't got into uni, what do I need to do? So my plan B was going to be to stay in Norwich for a year, redo my exams, get a job. I wanted to work at the theatre or in a department store, because my two things were, I really liked makeup and beauty, and I also love theatre, obviously. And I was going to spend a lot more time working on my like drama and musical theatre stuff, because I think I was meant to be studying drama at uni, but like it wasn't a drama school, it was a drama course at uni, which is a rogue choice from me because I was never really that big into drama. It was always specifically musical theatre, so I don't even think I would have enjoyed that course that much. But anyway, results day rolled around. Sorry, I'm telling you my life story. Results day rolled around. To my shock and honestly horror, I had gotten into uni. The thing is, I was only ever applying for uni because that's what I was told we were meant to do, but I just had this pit in my stomach. As soon as I saw the results, which were good results, I knew I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to follow through with it. It wasn't right for me. So I just pulled the plug on everything. I think to my parents' absolute dismay. Like, I think this was really probably one of the first times my parents went to me, what are you doing? And there have been many times since then. I deferred my place at uni and I got my job at the theatre. I did that over the summer already, so I already had it. I'd applied for some department store jobs, but I'd never even heard back. So I started working at the Theatre Royal in Norwich as an usher. So I was like selling the sweets and the popcorn. I got the little stand, which I hated actually. I much preferred it when I was like behind the tills. If we weren't working and there were extra tickets to see something, we could go and watch it for free, which was such a big perk. And like, I genuinely think really kind of formed my taste in theatre, because I got to go and see loads of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have picked, and it taught me a lot about like going in with no expectations. But anyway, so I decided that yeah, I wasn't going to go to uni and that I was going to do my job at the theatre and save up some money and be in a few more shows with the theatre group that I was a part of, and spend some more time with my friends from that theatre group. We'd gotten really close, mostly to spend time with them and to find my feet and to just feel a bit more confident and give myself some time to figure it all out, because I just didn't know what I was doing. And I mean, I still don't. I have a feeling this video is going to go very full circle. I ended up doing a music performance and production course. I only did the first year of it, so I only got like the first bit of the qualification. But one of my best friends, Meg, was also on the course with me, and somehow throughout the time that course took, we decided that instead of me moving away for uni, we were both going to go to uni in Norwich, and we were actually going to move out of home and into a shared flat, me, Meg and another one of our friends who lived with us for 1 year. But Meg and I stayed living together for the whole of my uni experience. She was at uni for a bit longer because she did a master's and stuff, and she is still one of my very best friends. So anyway, I was going to uni in Norwich at the UEA. I was doing media studies, which was different from drama and felt more me. It felt, I've always been a bit of a nerd for like branding. I've just realised I'm wearing my Rice Krispies t-shirt. I love like old vintage ads. I love journalism. I love like analysis of text and stuff like that, and I always have. So media studies felt a lot closer aligned to what I enjoy, and it sort of is like, you know, like the fun bits of English literature where you're like picking apart the like hidden meanings behind stuff. There was a lot of that, and a lot of learning about like the legal side of it all, like learning about libel and what can get you in trouble, and it kind of merged a lot of my interests together. There's like an element of performance, we were making films, we were, you know, the course felt like the right thing for me. That being said, going to uni in general really was not my bag. I didn't enjoy it. I've never really been a clubber. I didn't do the nightlife bit, and I think because of that I felt very isolated from the rest of the people on my course, but I still had my friends from all the drama stuff from before, so I was perfectly happy. Like, it wasn't really a lonely time for me. It was just like a slog. I just hated it. So I kind of started again, I was playing my game of chess, and I started thinking about the future, and I was like, right, what do I want? Somewhere along the way I got a call from one of the department store jobs that I'd applied for at Clinique in the beauty hall of Gerald's in Norwich. And they asked me if I wanted to come in for an interview, so I said yes. So at the time I was doing Clinique and the theatre, and then I said, what if I was also a tutor? So to be honest, with nothing but confidence, I had no qualifications, but you didn't need them. I signed up for this tutoring website, and I ended up tutoring a lot of kids in Norwich in maths and English, from, I think the youngest I tutored was 4 all the way up to GCSEs. And actually I then got recruited by a company that had like a apprenticeship. And that meant that a lot of the people on the apprenticeship, if they didn't have their GCSEs from earlier on in their lives, they needed to kind of fill in the blanks and get an equivalent qualification. So by that point I was also tutoring classrooms full of adults, and some of them in their 50s, their 60s. And uni just sort of felt a bit insignificant. I had 4 jobs really, if you count the 2 different types of tutoring separately, because I was doing the like workplace tutoring during the day and then the kids tutoring in the evenings. I also had a couple of kids who were homeschooled, so I would go into them like several times a week. Uni was literally like the last thing on my mind at this point. I was still getting student loan that was covering all my expenses, so all of this extra money that I was earning, and I wasn't even doing the jobs really to earn money. I was doing it because I was just sort of having a good time, like figuring different stuff out, learning about theatre, and I had a really good like social time at that job. And then I loved the beauty hall, like the learning side of like makeup and skincare and all of that. And then also I was doing this tutoring thing that felt really rewarding, because it really felt like I was genuinely, you know, helping people. I loved when at the beginning of a lesson we would come across a problem that was making the kids feel stuck or upset, and by the end of the lesson we'd worked it out, and then it was something that you could really see the progress of, and it was very rewarding. And I pretty much stopped going to uni altogether, if I'm honest. But obviously, as a lovely result of that, I managed to save a house deposit in that time. I was genuinely working more hours than I have ever worked since, and will probably ever work again. It was like I was working or I was asleep. It got to a stage where I literally scheduled lessons in when I had lectures at uni, because I was like, let's face it, I'm not going to that. And I'm not advocating for that at all. I think, you know, whatever you're doing, you should commit to 100%. But uni at that point, I was handing in my assignments, so I was still getting the grades, but like I'd had a few issues where the lectures just felt, we were constantly having substitute teachers who didn't really seem to know anything about the subject. There were loads of issues, but basically I wasn't enjoying uni. But then as uni was finishing, and Meg, who I lived with, was going off to Australia for 6 months, and so we needed to move out of the uni house, and I'd been spending a little bit more time in London. I'd been at the YouTube space quite a bit because I'd started doing YouTube a lot more, particularly off the back of like beauty reviews, but with stuff that I'd learned from my job. I was getting invited to a few like influencer events, and like I was presenting some videos at Comic-Con for their YouTube channel and stuff like that, and it was a really cool time, and it was like another thing to add to my plate. I am someone who always, I'm a bit of a yes man, if I'm honest. I just hate to say no to a cool opportunity, or like an opportunity that might like push me in a new direction, regardless of what that is. And that is going to be a common theme, I think. But basically, I was coming towards the end of uni, and I sort of realised I'd saved up enough money for a house deposit, but buying a house in Norwich felt wrong, and something about London was sort of calling me. And so, with the help of the government Help to Buy scheme, I went, yeah, all right. Now we're in my living in London era. It took me a while to settle in. There were a lot of nights of me in the flat by myself playing the piano and crying because my friend who I was living with at the time was out and I was lonely. It's not funny. It was sad, actually. There were times where I wondered what on earth I'd done. But I persevered and I made some friends through Instagram. Maria first. I met Maria in, I think it was February 2019. I'd moved here in September 2018. So about 6 months later, I followed her on Instagram and I messaged her and asked if she ever needed anyone to take her photos, because like I said, I was sort of curious about like the content creation industry. I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more. I'd had a little bit of insight into the world of YouTube, but Instagram not really. So I'd followed Maria and I'd watched her stories and I thought we'd get on well. And I messaged her and asked her, and for some unknown reason she said yes. So we met up and we did photos, and we did that once a week, and then we started doing other stuff together, just like socially or going to events and blah blah blah. And then we went to New York together. You know, sometimes when you just meet someone you go, oh yeah, you're on my wavelength. It was very much one of those. Also, as I was going to these events, I was seeing more and more familiar faces. I felt like I was finding my feet socially here. And in terms of work, I'd picked up a few bits of copywriting and a few bits of like social media management work freelance during the days, so that my work wasn't so evening heavy, because I felt like that was really inhibiting my social life. So I was doing social media management for like some restaurants and a few bits and pieces like that. God, this really has just turned into my whole life story, hasn't it? But anyway, then it was 2020. Obviously, we all know what happened there. The pandemic. I actually went back to Norwich when things started to look a bit dicey. Firstly because at least my mum's house has a garden, but also because like my sister really hadn't been very well and her birthday was coming up, her 21st, and I really wanted to make sure that I was there for that, and several other reasons. But basically, when I went back to Norwich for the pandemic and then it just kept going, I kind of wondered whether London was done for me. I sort of thought I would just lose touch with everyone from London. And I don't really know what I thought would happen with the flat, but like I was really upset about it. Obviously I didn't lose touch with my London life at all. If anything, throughout that time I then started speaking to more people online who I'd met a couple of times, but like I think we were all just like bored and inside, weren't we? So those friendships kind of blossomed, and obviously like Jess and Abby, for example, I met them that way, and now like they are some of my best friends in the world. Yeah, but basically like piece by piece, I feel like I've really built this life that I currently am living, really brick by brick, like very intentionally, and I love it. I love so much about it. But because of the pandemic, all of my tutoring work dried up because you can't go into houses, and also because I was in Norwich. I did a little bit on Zoom, but it just wasn't as effective. And I didn't really feel like I could charge full price for being on Zoom, but obviously my bills didn't get any smaller. And then also all the restaurants that I was doing the social media for shut down, or like didn't then have the budget to pick up social media straight away. Like that wasn't the priority, which is totally fair enough. Work-wise, it was bad. And also my Instagram had been hacked and deleted. I don't know if any of you will remember that era. But actually I think it turned out to be for the best, if I'm honest, because it meant that I really had to commit to like building a new one up and making it stick. And I sort of said to myself, right, you need to stop faffing around. You've got your fingers in too many pies. You need to post every day, at least once a day on Instagram. See if you can build it. And if you can, then you can do it. And if you can't, then that's fine. But you need to go and do something else, and stop splitting yourself up into a million tiny pieces, because it meant that I felt like nothing was ever getting really done to the standard that I wanted it to be. So I really committed to it and I made it work. It was crazy. I still can't believe I did that. I went full-time on social media in, I think it was October 2022. As a result of social media, I've made the best group of friends I could ever ask for. I have had all of these insane opportunities, literally pinch me moments sometimes. I honestly felt like I was living my dream in a lot of ways. I was having the best time. However, I was sort of burning the candle at both ends, and I was aware of it, but I wasn't doing anything about it because I was having too much fun. I wasn't sleeping properly, I wasn't eating properly. Genuinely, sometimes I would go 3 weeks without opening my fridge. Like, as in, I wasn't not eating, I was just ordering in. Or like, we have Sainsbury's underneath where I live, so I would just like walk downstairs. That's probably how I managed to not open the fridge all the time, to be honest. Like, I'd go down to Sainsbury's, buy a pizza, whack it in the oven, and that was dinner. But like, it was all the time. Other than that, it was restaurants. Sometimes I would eat 3 meals a day in a restaurant, or takeaways. Like, I don't mean like full-on restaurants, I mean like I'd grab a quick Pret. But you know, like, it all adds up, doesn't it? And also, like, it's not good for you. I was also dealing with a lot of stress from various factors that I think was pushing me more into this fun that I was having with like the work stuff, and so I was really throwing myself into that to kind of try and distract myself from the fact that everything was sort of burning behind the scenes and I wasn't looking after myself. So I would say at the beginning of 2023, definitely by May, because that's when I had my call, but basically my mortgage was up for renewal because I'd lived here 5 years, and I feel like I was robbed because so much of that was taken up by the pandemic, but what can you do? It was also an absolutely terrible time for mortgage rates. They were astronomically high, and as well as that, a lot of the other bills had gone up a lot in that time, and obviously the lifestyle that I was living was not very cost effective. But at the time it genuinely felt like the only way, because I was so busy. I didn't really feel like I could stop. I was on a wheel. And I wasn't hating being on the wheel, but like, basically then, at the 5-year point, my mortgage repayments almost doubled. And my Help to Buy loan interest-free period was over, so I had to start paying hundreds of pounds of interest a month on the Help to Buy loan. Like, financially it was looking pretty bleak, but I knew that I was definitely overspending in other areas. So I sort of said to myself, right, what am I gonna do here? Do I want to move out of London? Because the prices here are just crazy, and obviously, not obviously, but the Help to Buy loan will only go if I sell the flat, and that was a big expense. I was sort of thinking, do I move elsewhere? Where would I go? I didn't want to move back to Norwich because it just felt like a massive backward step, and I was loving what I was doing so much. I couldn't imagine doing this like influencer job living in Norwich because so many of the events are in London. But at the same time, I had a lot of ongoing health problems within my family. Not for me personally, but that meant, and just like wanting to see my family and friends in Norwich, I was going backwards and forwards a lot. I considered maybe moving to like Cambridge or somewhere on the outskirts of London, but in that direction, because I live in West London and Norwich is in the east of the country. So like, it's the other side of London. It can take sort of 4 hours on a badish day. I would say the average is probably 3.5. Anyway, and so yeah, I was considering moving to somewhere between the two. Then I kind of realised that I didn't know anywhere, and also there would be nothing for me there. Yes, it would be good for like the big stuff, the big plans, but in terms of the everyday, like if I wanted someone to go and walk around B&Q with, I would just be there on my own. And I was single, obviously, as well, so I really would be completely on my own. And I just thought, I don't want that. I'm loving this. Like, let me see if I can raise my own stakes, meet the new bills, and we'll go from there. And that's what I did. And the thing is, sometimes I have been known to put myself in situations that are out of my depth just to see if I can raise my own performance to meet those standards. And you know what, a lot of the time it has actually worked out quite well for me, but I think on this occasion I might have flown a bit too close to the start. I had various things go wrong that then cost a lot of money. I suddenly needed a new laptop, and as someone who is self-employed, to me, putting stuff on like finance to be paid monthly is quite risky because I don't get a monthly paycheck. So whenever I buy something, I always try and take that hit personally. I'm like terrified of buy now, pay later. It just doesn't work for me personally. But so I had a few things that were very unexpected, big costs, but it was fine because I was out every day, every night. I was like not partying, but like at events. I was going on like free trips, free restaurants, having a lovely time, but just like totally neglecting my own health, my personal physical health, my mental health, my financial health. But I was having the absolute time of my life, and I am so glad that I had that time of saying yes to absolutely everything. And I still want to say yes to most things, but I'm trying to be a bit more selective. I also had quite a lot of lasting post-COVID symptoms, and I think they were also worsening because of the lifestyle that I was leading. It just wasn't gonna last. And I think I knew that in the back of my head. But I loved the good bits so much, and I was on a bit of a machine, so I just kept going. In July 2023, I met Charlie. We went for our first date and we hit it off straight away. So then I was spending a lot of time between London and Kent, where he was living at the time. And then eventually, a year later, he moved into this flat. And all of that was kind of still ongoing, that like hamster wheel that I was on. However, the scales started to tilt, I would say. It sort of went from me asking, can I physically meet all of these demands and have all of these outgoings, and can I keep all these plates spinning? And I think because I was so burnt out, one day I sort of went, is it worth it? And then the more I thought about it, then the little bits of London that I didn't like so much started to grate on me a lot. I started to really resent every bill that went out. Everyone feels so rude and everyone's in such a rush all the time. And I think if I'd never known any different, I wouldn't mind. But I think because I grew up somewhere much smaller, we moved to a house a lot when I was a kid, but like only ever in like little towns and villages, I just sort of went, I just like it when people aren't rude. And obviously people in Norwich sometimes are rude, and people in London sometimes are lovely, but sort of just like as a general rule of thumb, I had a few bad experiences. And then I sort of got to a point where I felt like I was kind of dragging myself out of bed every day to just do whatever I could to pay the bills, and I wasn't really loving the content I was making. A lot of it I was just sort of doing what I thought would get a lot of views or a lot of engagement, when actually I realised that what I loved more was filming YouTube videos and filming stuff at home, like my declutters and stuff like that, and I didn't need to be out at events every day. The scales just sort of turned. But obviously Charlie had just moved into my flat, and so I'd kind of benched that idea, and I'd like made my peace with the fact that we were going to be staying in London. And then I'd had quite a few ongoing health issues, like I said, with various members of my family that was obviously very emotionally what's the word, like just had a big emotional pull on me. And I remember one day I was in the bath and Charlie was on his lunch break at work. I was in the bath because I was filming a bath ad, so I was in the bath in the middle of the day, but it was sort of work related, and I was just crying, and I pulled myself together and I was like, right, what is the problem here? And it just felt like there was such a big disconnect, and I felt so stuck. And so I messaged Charlie and I was like, are you free? And we had a phone call, and I said, listen, what do you think about the idea of moving maybe to Norwich? I thought he was gonna go, Amy, I've only just moved to London, I really don't want to do that. And I was going to say, okay, that's fair enough, this is a collective decision, if you don't want to do it, we won't do it. But he went, yeah, could do. And I was like, oh. And then we talked about it for a bit, and obviously Charlie didn't grow up in London either. He quite enjoys the countryside. He wasn't loving commuting into London for work every day. Obviously everything's really expensive. There were lots of factors, but basically we kind of realised that neither of us see ourselves living in London forever. And we'd had this conversation earlier too. We'd said that maybe we'd stay in London for a couple of years. But I think because of a lot of this stuff going on with my family especially, and also the financial side of everything, I sort of went, hang on a minute, what, so if we've decided in a couple of years, why would we continue to stretch ourselves so thin for those couple of years if we know that ultimately we're going to have to start and rebuild somewhere else anyway? And at first I worried that I was giving up. I was so burnt out. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, nothing I did was ever good enough. I would meet all the financial demands on me and then suddenly something would go wrong with my car and I would need to fix that. I would be spinning my plates just fine, but then another situation would happen in another area of my life that would need my attention. Everything just, I just felt completely beaten down by it. So we had lots of discussions. This was August last year, and we decided to put the flat on the market and to go from there. Originally the plan was that I was then going to buy another house in Norwich to do up. At that point we hadn't been together long enough, really, I don't think, to consider buying somewhere together. And also it kind of made sense. I could port my mortgage maybe, but basically as time has gone on, we've kind of decided that we're going to buy a house together instead, which is nice. Don't know where though, somewhere in the Norwich area. Okay, so the plan. Have we bought somewhere? No. When are we moving out of here? Tomorrow. When we spoke to various members of my family about the fact that we want to move out of London, I think first of all they were all very shocked. Never let them know your next move. When we told my grandparents, they said to me, you want to move to Norwich? I said, yeah. And basically my grandparents have like an annex on the side of their house that they rent out, and there had been talks of the person who lived in there moving elsewhere, like moving out of the area. And so they were like, I wonder if timeline wise that would work out, and it didn't look like it was going to. But then basically we had some complications with the first estate agent that we had. Honestly, selling a house is so long and boring, guys. I have really hated every second of the selling process of this house, particularly because it's a flat, and so I've got the Help to Buy loan on it, which has complicated things. There's a management company of the building which has complicated so many things, and it's just been the most convoluted process. The first estate agent we had was an absolute joke. I literally felt like I was being pranked. So it took us a little while to get to this point, although I'm quite glad it has. It now feels like a better time than it did before, in that Charlie and I have lived together longer, we've been together longer, we've kind of had longer to wrap our heads around all of this. I know it's not a rushed decision, and also the person that was living in my grandparents' annex is no longer living in there. So plan of action is we are moving into my grandparents' annex for a few months, which is going to really lighten the financial load for a while. So we are incredibly grateful for that, and it is going to allow us to literally start fresh. It's going to be a lot less space than we used to. My cats have never seen a flight of stairs before, but there are stairs in the annex, so who knows what they're going to make of that. But so the plan of action for now, we've finally gotten here. Move to Norwich, in with my grandparents for a few months while we look for somewhere to buy. We have actually done a few viewings already, and actually we even put an offer in on a place, but we didn't get it. And then we kind of said, right, it's actually really hard to do viewings when we live so far away, because you do first viewing. So we would like go to Norwich, book in a whole day's worth of viewings. We did like 7 viewings in one day. All the houses would merge together in our heads. We'd then come away, think about it and go, oh, maybe we should book a second viewing of that one. But then we'd have to try and work out the next time we were in Norwich to be able to do that, by which point the house had usually sold. So we'd kind of, thank God, we have the privilege to be able to split it all up and do it in smaller sections. So the house hunting process starts again next week, and I'm quite excited now that you guys know about this, because it means I'll actually be able to bring you along. That's kind of why I haven't been vlogging, because my brain has been full of Rightmove listings and bubble wrap and not a lot else. So I've honestly felt like I had nothing to talk about, because I felt like I was keeping a big secret. But it's just that I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't want it to fall through, and also like for a while I was kind of trying to navigate my own feelings around it, and I just didn't want other people weighing in on that. And also everyone always says it's such a difficult process, and like things fall through all the time and blah blah blah. And I honestly, like, if you guys have been hearing about it since August last year, you'd be bored of it as well. So listen, I've done us all a favour, but I'm back now and I'm excited to be back in my oversharing era. But if I'm honest, I'm still not 100% sure that it's the right decision. The trouble is, right, I'm so proud of the life that I've built here. I love it. When you have lived in more than one place and you have people that you care so much about in more than one place, and you have your favourite coffee shops and your favourite spots in more than one place, I kind of feel like it's like Horcruxes. Sorry to make a Harry Potter reference, but like it's like you leave little pieces of you everywhere. And so I don't know if maybe that's just something I've done now that I can never undo, but I just don't know if I will ever feel like 100% of my life is in Norwich. I know I'll be coming back and forth from London all the time for work, and I want to do that, and I want to see my friends. I know that I also have a life that I love in Norwich, and I will continue to build that and build, you know, a home there with Charlie, and there are people there that I haven't even met yet that I'm sure will be so important to me in the future. It's just so hard to know, isn't it? I don't deal very well with the unknown. As we said, I like my chess game. I like to be able to plan things out. But emotions are kind of something that you can't plan for. Obviously, Charlie has never lived in Norwich either, so this is a whole new adventure for him. So that will have a factor too. Does he even like it? Does he want to stay there? I also have that like horrible voice in the back of my head that is telling me I'm a failure because I couldn't because I couldn't make London work. But what I keep trying to say to myself is like, it doesn't have to be a backwards step. It's still a forward step. It's hopefully a step where I will have more time. I will be able to regulate my nervous system better. I will have more time to do things that I find really fulfilling. I will be able to get a gym membership and go swimming. I'm so desperate to go swimming, guys. I've wanted to go swimming for so long. I love swimming. But the gyms around me are like £300 a month. I can't do that. Gyms in Norwich are like £50 a month for like the nice gyms. No decision is permanent. I think the current plan is to move to Norwich with the intention of staying there. But ultimately, if we don't like it, we don't have to. One thing I do know for sure is that staying in this particular flat is not the right decision for several reasons. The selling of this flat is a correct decision, even if it has been very long-winded and horrible. As for the other decisions, I haven't made them yet, so I can't tell you whether they're any good. But if you fancy figuring it out together, that would be fantastic, because I'm gonna film everything. I feel like I should end this on something wise, but I'm sort of all out. Sorry guys, I've got boxes to pack. I've got a van arriving tomorrow at 8 AM. Let me know if there's anything I haven't answered. I feel like I've literally like walked you through my life since the moment I was born, but if there's any questions that you've got, chuck them in the comments, and I will work them into a future one of my like moving diary series, because I've filmed so much and I'm so excited to finally get to share it with you. Oh my god, I actually feel like euphoric now that I can tell you my news. We've got so much to catch up on. I'll see you soon. Love you, bye.